Good morning. Welcome to Devotions. The suggested reading for this week is Hebrews 5:5-10. In the same way, Christ did not take on himself the glory of becoming a high priest, but God said to him, "You are my son. Today I have become your father." And he says in another place, "You are a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek." During the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears to the one who could save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverent submission. Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered, and once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him, and was designated by God to be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Now, the book of Hebrews was written by an unknown author, sometime in the last third of the 1st century AD. And even though it is called the Epistle to the Hebrews, it is not really a letter. It is more like a sermon. The author may have aimed it at a community in either Palestine or Rome. It seemed that the congregation was suffering from persecution, and some were considering turning their backs on faith. I would say that this reaction sounds familiar with many Christians who face certain drawbacks. In these verses, Jesus is compared to the high priests from the Old Testament as he mirrors their journey. Jesus sympathized with everyone's suffering. And in these weeks of Lent, the verses we should remember and hold dear to emphasize the humanity of Jesus. In verses 7-10, Jesus, who did not glorify himself in becoming a high priest, was instead appointed to that position of God. So now imagine, just for an interesting scenario, that Jesus, being divine, hesitated to take on the role of a high priest. It's as if there was a divine council meeting and Jesus, being the rebellious teenager in the heavenly household, was reluctant to put on the priestly robes. Picture God saying to him, "Come on, Jesus, it's time to be the high priest." And Jesus responding with a reluctant sigh, "Do I have to, Dad?" I think that this response is often our response. This is too hard. Do we have to? Jesus learned obedience through what he suffered. He learned love through the suffering of others. And in doing so, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. When someone in our Bible study is suffering, we show them love. When someone we know has been through a terrible tragedy, we show them love. When we see brokenness in the world, the best way to fix it is to show love. We are emulating the Trinity when we do, and we should not have that reluctant stance, "Do I have to, Dad?" We should not be displaying spiritual immaturity. A high priest was usually chosen from the community of God's people, but was not chosen by God's people. He was appointed by God for the people. Ministers are to do God's work for the people, but so are we. And we can't do it in our own strength. And we should certainly not run around bragging about our achievements. 3 words stick out for me in this passage: obedience, suffering, and love. May we embody a complete synergy of all of those and rely on our Father at all times. Amen. See you next time.